Here's Donald Trump.
We're going to have peace. That's what we want. That's what we're going to have. I say peace through strength. I have helped the NATO alliance greatly by increasing defense contributions from our NATO allies by over $44 billion. And Secretary Stoltenberg was fantastic. As you know, he reported that they've never had an increase like this in their history, and NATO was actually going down as opposed to going up. And I increased it by my meeting last year, $44 billion, and this year will be it'll be hundreds of billions of dollars over the coming years. And I think there's great unity with NATO. There's a lot of very positive things happening. There's a great spirit that we didn't have before, and there's a lot of money that they're putting up. They weren't paying their bills on time, and now they're doing that. And I want to just say thank you very much to Secretary Stoltenberg. He really has been terrific. So we had a tremendous success. I also had meetings with Prime Minister May on the range of issues concerning our special relationship, and that's between the United Kingdom and ourselves. We met with the Queen, who is absolutely a terrific person, where she reviewed her honor guard for the first time in 70 years, they tell me. We walked in front of the honor guard, and that was very inspiring to see and be with her. And I think the relationship, I can truly say, is a good one. But she was very, very inspiring indeed. Most recently, I returned from Helsinki, Finland, and I was going to give a news conference over the next couple of days about the tremendous success, because as successful as NATO was, I think this was our most successful visit. And that had to do, as you know, with Russia. I met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in an attempt to tackle some of the most pressing issues facing humanity. We have never been in a worse relationship with Russia than we are as of a few days ago, and I think that's gotten substantially better. And I think it has the possibility of getting much better. And I used to talk about this during the campaign. Getting along with Russia would be a good thing. Getting along with China would be a good thing. Not a bad thing, a good thing. In fact, a very good thing. We're nuclear powers, great nuclear powers. Russia and us have 90% of the nuclear weapons. So I've always felt getting along is a positive thing, and not just for that reason. I entered the meeting with the firm conviction that diplomacy and engagement is better than hostility and conflict. And I feel that with everybody. We have 29 members in NATO, as an example, and I have great relationships, or at least very good relationships, with everybody. The press covered it quite inaccurately. They said I insulted people. Well, if asking for people to pay up money that they are supposed to pay is insulting, maybe I did. But I can tell you, when I left, everybody was thrilled, and that's the way this was, too. My meeting with President Putin was really interesting in so many different ways, because we haven't had relationships with Russia for a long time, and we started. Let me begin by saying that, once again, the full faith and support for America's intelligence agencies. I have a full faith in our intelligence agencies. Whoops, they just turned off the light. That must be the intelligence agencies. There it goes. Okay. You guys okay? Good. That was strange, but that's okay. So I'll begin by stating that I have full faith and support for America's great intelligence agencies, always had. And I have felt very strongly that while Russia's actions had no impact at all on the outcome of the election, let me be totally clear in saying that, and I've said this many times, I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also. There's a lot of people out there. There was no collusion at all. And people have seen that, and they've seen that strongly. The House has already come out very strongly on that. A lot of people have come out strongly on that. I thought that I made myself very clear by having just reviewed the transcript. Now, I have to say, I came back And I said, what is going on? What's the big deal? So I got a transcript, I reviewed it. I actually went out and reviewed a clip of an answer that I gave. And I realized that there is a need for some clarification. It should have been obvious. I thought it would be obvious, but I would like to clarify just in case it wasn't. In a key sentence in my remarks, I said the word would instead of wouldn't. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't, or why it wouldn't be Russia. So just to repeat it, I said the word would instead of wouldn't, and the sentence should have been, and I thought it would be maybe a little bit unclear on the transcript or unclear on the actual video. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Sort of a double negative. So you can put that in, and I think that probably clarifies things pretty good by itself. I have on numerous occasions noted our intelligence findings that Russians attempted to interfere in our elections. Unlike previous administrations, my administration has and will continue to move aggressively to repeal any efforts and repel. We will stop it, we will repel it, any efforts to interfere in our elections. We're doing everything in our power to prevent Russian interference in 2018. And we have a lot of power. As you know, President Obama was given information just prior to the election, last election, 2016, and they decided not to do anything about it. The reason they decided that was pretty obvious to all. They thought Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, and they didn't think it was a big deal. When I won the election, they thought it was a very big deal, and all of a sudden they went into action, but it was a little bit late. So he was given that in sharp contrast to the way it should be. And President Obama, along with Brennan and Clapper and the whole group that you see on television now, probably getting paid a lot of money by your networks, they knew about Russia's attempt to interfere in the election in September, and they totally buried it. And as I said, they buried it because they thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win. Turned out it didn't happen that way. By contrast, my administration has taken a very firm stance. It's a very firm stance on a strong action. We're going to take strong action to secure our election systems and the process. Furthermore, as has been stated, and we've stated it previously and on many occasions, no collusion. Yesterday, we made significant progress toward addressing some of the worst conflicts on Earth. So when I met with President Putin for about 2.5 hours, we talked about numerous things. And among those things are the problems that you see in the Middle East, where they're very much involved, we're very much involved. I entered the negotiations with President Putin from a position of tremendous strength. Our economy is booming, and our military is being funded $700 billion this year, $716 billion next year. It will be more powerful as a military than we've ever had before. President Putin and I addressed a range of issues, starting with the civil war in Syria and need for humanitarian aid and help for people in Syria. We also spoke of Iran and the need to halt the nuclear ambitions and the destabilizing activities taking place in Iran. As most of you know, we ended the Iran deal, which was one of the worst deals anyone could imagine, and that's had a major impact on Iran, and it's substantially weakened Iran, and we hope that at some point Iran will call us and we'll maybe make a new deal, or we maybe won't. But Iran is not the same country that it was 5 months ago, that I can tell you. They're no longer looking so much to the Mediterranean and the entire Middle East. They've got some big problems that they can solve probably much easier if they deal with us. So we'll see what happens. But we did discuss Iran. We discussed Israel and the security of Israel. And President Putin is very much involved now with us in a discussion with Bibi Netanyahu on working something out with surrounding Syria and specifically with regards to the security and long-term security of Israel. A major topic of discussion was North Korea and the need for it to remove its nuclear weapons. Russia has assured us of its support. President Putin said he agrees with me 100%, and they'll do whatever they have to do to try and make it happen. Discussions are ongoing, and they're going very, very well. We have no rush for speed. The sanctions are remaining. The hostages are back. There have been no tests. There have been no rockets going up for a period of 9 months. And I think the relationships are very good. So we'll see how that goes. We have no time limit. We have no speed limit. We're just going through the process. But the relationships are very good. President Putin is going to be involved in the sense that he is with us. He would like to see that happen. Perhaps the most important issue we discussed at our meeting prior to the press conference was the reduction of nuclear weapons throughout the world. The United States and Russia have 90%, as I said, and we can have a big impact. But nuclear weapons is, I think, the greatest threat of our world today. And they're a great nuclear power. We're a great nuclear power. We have to do something about nuclear. And so that was a matter that we discussed actually in great detail, and President Putin agrees with me. The matters we discussed are profound in their importance and have the potential to save millions of lives. I understand the many disagreements between our countries, but I also understand that dialogue in when you think about a dialogue with Russia or dialogue with other countries, but dialogue with Russia in this case, where we've had such poor relationships for so many years, dialogue is a very important thing, and it's a very good thing. So if we get along with them, great. If we don't get along with them, then we won't get along with them. But I think we have a very good chance of having some very positive things. I thought that the meeting that I had with President Putin was really strong. I think that they were willing to do things that, frankly, I wasn't sure whether or not they would be willing to do. And we'll be having future meetings, and we'll see whether or not that comes to fruition. But we had a very, very good meeting. So I just wanted to clear up. I have the strongest respect for our intelligence agencies headed by my people. We have great people, whether it's Gina, or Dan Coates, or any of them. I mean, we have tremendous people, tremendous talent within the agencies. I think they're being guided properly, and we all want the same thing. We want success for our country. So with that, we're going to start a meeting now on tax reductions. We're going to be putting in a bill. Kevin Brady is with us, and I might ask Kevin just to say a couple of words about that, and then we'll get back onto a private meeting. But Kevin, could you maybe give just a brief discussion about what we'll be talking about?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Thank you for having members of the Ways and Means Committee here today. You know, peace through strength is foreign policy that works, and it works best when America has a strong economy and a strong military. Under your leadership, House and Senate Republicans are delivering on both of them. Today is about how we can strengthen America's economy even more, and we think the best place to start is with America's middle-class families and our small businesses. So today we're here to talk to you about making permanent this tax relief. One, so they can continue to grow.
And that was the U.S. President
so
Donald Trump moments ago reacting to that summit in Helsinki yesterday with Vladimir Putin. The headline from what the president had to say is that he misspoke. He said that I couldn't figure out what all the fuss was about following that summit. Then he asked for a transcript, and he looked at a clip of that summit, and he said, I have full faith and support in America's intelligence agencies, because that came into question yesterday. And he said, I said would, I should have said wouldn't. And the line is, I should have said, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia interfering in the election. What he said at the summit yesterday was, I don't see any reason why it would be Russia that interfered, that he spoke with Vladimir Putin, and he didn't see why Russia would have interfered in the election, but then going on to say that he didn't believe that Russian interference in the elections had any impact on the outcome of the election, which of course made Donald Trump president. So let's bring in Lindsay Duncombe, who's also been listening along with us. So Lindsay, that I think is the headline, that the president's like saying, I need to clarify, I said the word would, I should have said the word wouldn't, so it's kind of a double negative, basically saying, I believe that Russia did, in fact, meddle in our elections, and I think he said it 4 times, maybe 5 times, I have full faith in America's intelligence agencies.
As far as lessons in damage control go, Andrew, I don't think that Donald Trump's attempts to move this crisis away or make it go away are going to be studied as an example of how to do it right. The idea that saying one word wrong was what derailed the whole thing, and stepping back from that, I was just trying to look at the Twitter reaction. The predictable critics appeared shocked that that was his way of handling it. The question that we have to watch is, will Republicans buy this? Do they still trust this president? Or is this bizarre way of trying to move away from the crisis? Because what you didn't hear there was an apology, so much so that any doubts that were brought to the surface or talked about yesterday are going to stay in place with those Republican supporters. There will be people that believe Donald Trump. His supporters are fervent. 90% of Republicans support this president. So he hasn't lost them all. The question is, did this attempt at damage control do enough to maintain support, or have there been doubts cast as a result of this? He's not comfortable when dialing back from something. Even when he was talking about, as you said several times, he said, I support the intelligence community. It was Russia that meddled. He had to add that line in there. It could have been others. So it is as though the president continues to have some kind of doubts. It was not unequivocal in that statement.
Yeah, and so, Lindsay, we're also just trying to get that clip from yesterday, just to kind of compare and contrast and play that tone and let people decide for themselves. But that is the key takeaway, right? That he says that he misspoke, that he used the word would instead of wouldn't, meaning that he completely believes that Russia did, in fact, interfere in the 2016 elections, but he doesn't believe that that caused any impact on that election. Sorry, somebody's trying to...
When you look at the preparation that goes into these kinds of international summits, regardless of the adversarial nature between the United States and Russia, regardless of the scrutiny that Donald Trump was obviously going into in this meeting, that's not the kind of nuance that you would expect really any world leader to leave, to misspeak in a way that could be interpreted so opposite of your intended message is it's just amazing to see. It will be interesting to see who believes it.
All right, so Lindsay, what we've done now is that we have joined these 2 clips. So we've got the clip from yesterday of what Trump said at that summit in Helsinki and his explanation about misspeaking, about clarifying that he said today. We put them together. We'll let our viewers judge, but then we'll chat. Let's listen.
With that being said, all I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be, but I really do want to see the server. I got a transcript. I reviewed it. I actually went out and reviewed a clip of an answer that I gave. And I realize that there is a need for some clarification. It should have been obvious. I thought it would be obvious, but I would like to clarify just in case it wasn't. In a key sentence in my remarks, I said the word would instead of wouldn't. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't, or why it wouldn't be Russia. So, just to repeat it, I said the word would instead of wouldn't, and the sentence should have been, and I thought it would be maybe a little bit unclear on the transcript or unclear on the actual video, The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Sort of a double negative. So you can put that in, and I think that probably clarifies things pretty good by itself.
All right, so Lindsay, there it is. So what he said yesterday, that he misspoke, and this is what he's saying today. It was a word that was a very key word because it completely changes everything. Will Americans buy it? Will Americans say, all right, maybe he just didn't use a proper word?
And, you know, it's not hard to believe that Donald Trump would stumble over words. I mean, he says one thing and then another. He goes back and forth all the time. I mean, there will be Americans who believe Donald Trump. 90% of Republicans in this country support this president, even if they didn't like what happened at the summit, even if they look at the criticism that's coming from it. He does have a strong pool of supporters. We just don't know if the doubts that were created by the Republican leadership will spill over into his base. Remember, Donald Trump's base doesn't like the Republican leadership either. Just because Paul Ryan is going out there sounding slightly harsher than he has in the past, that might endear Trump to some of the people who support him and are against establishment Republicans. It all comes down to whether or not they believe the president. And I think the reaction to this will continue to play out.
And just finally, Lindsay, what may make some people skeptical about giving Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt is that he was asked a follow-up by Jeff Mason at that summit in Helsinki yesterday. Did you hold Russia to account for anything? Because it was a pretty fawning press conference between the two leaders, and he said, oh, well, both countries are to blame. And he didn't list the things that Trudeau listed, which were the annexation of Crimea, the poisoning in the UK, Syria, and the Assad regime.
Yeah, so it wasn't just one sentence in that news conference that was the thing that troubled so many Americans who watched it. That one sentence made it appear as though he was casting a doubt upon the intelligence agencies. But he said far more than that. And then it is, as you said, all the things he didn't say, including the annexation of Crimea, including the poisoning in Europe, and all of the ways in which Republicans would be expecting this president to hold the president of Russia to account. He didn't do any of that. So that skepticism will remain. But you do not underestimate the forgiveness capacity of people who support Donald Trump.
Lindsay, thank you. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe live outside the White House in Washington.